Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll start with the approval of the agenda. Any changes, corrections, anything, Paul?
Not me.
Dan? No. Brian? No? I've got, add G1 update on 7th Street Northwest, under old business, and then add I-5 and I-5A, utility bill, that rate sheet and the billing sheet that, everybody should have that at their desk to understand utility bill. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Make the motion.
Thanks, Ryan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Mel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Consent agenda. Questions, comments for administration on the consent agenda? Okay, entertain a motion to approve.
Make the motion.
Thanks, Dan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Ryan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. On to committee report, Planning Commission, the A&A rezone and comp plan amendment.
Sure, including your package, you've got a request for council action. The Planning and Zoning Committee had a real quick meeting, so not a lot of their content, but basically what they have is the folks down at A&A are looking at rezoning that property. They're adding another lot and building their building. And in the process of that application, we identified that the lot zoning was really not proper for the intended use. And so, as you can see there, we're looking at changing it from retail service commercial to industrial manufacturing business, just cleaning up that section of the area. Based on, and I wasn't at the hearing, but based on the feedback I received and talking with staff, the largest item was discussion about proper screening, which the applicant, and Mr. Granzi is going to be the builder there, had indicated they'd be doing some potentially vegetative screening with that. So right now there isn't any screening, so it would be an improvement actually for the whole border with the folks down in South Fork, not just on the new lot that's added on the eastern side. So I think the recommendation with Planning Commission was to move forward with that. I don't know if there's anything.
No, it made sense to plan zoning. The last they could remember is when we did when he built there, there was no industrial, and we just thought now was the perfect time to change it, to make it fit into what the city wants.
Okay. Any other comments, questions from anybody? Okay. Can we do all this with one motion, or does it have to be two separate ones?
I believe if you look at the resolution there, you should be able to do that with one.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I didn't miss a page, so. All right, I'll take a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Dan. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Thanks, Paul. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Planning and Zoning. EDA, the 301 facade grant. Any questions on that? That was presented from EDA. The money there's money in the program. The cost came in a couple $100 higher than what it was when they first applied. It still fits within the limits. They're not close to the max, so I'd entertain a motion to approve that.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Dan. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Mel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Old business, we had an update on 7th Street Northwest.
So Ian was out there with staff today, and they have pictures there included in your packet. Those were uploaded to Dropbox. So basically, we'd like to put a pin in it for this year. They went out there. They did not find a lot of stuff to take away. It was a very quick visit, so I mean, I consider it to be as successful as possible with that. Staff went out, visited with her, had been talking to her all week, encouraging her to get it cleaned up ahead of the staff's visit, and she did that to the best of her ability. So, the site looks about as good as it has all year, frankly. So we're pleased with the outcome.
Good. Any questions on that? All right, thanks, Jim. Telling you and thank you.
You bet.
New business encroachment agreement with Mayo Foundation. The encroachment agreement, that's in the alley behind their property where they already maintain it, so this is just getting that cleaned up. Any questions on that at all from what you saw in the packet? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Make the motion.
Thanks, Ryan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Paul. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. New business number 2, quote for tandem axle truck from Public Works.
So this is an update. Earlier this year, this was approved at council level. I asked them to bring it back to us because there was a significant increase in cost. After they finalized that, I mean, there was about a $15,000 to $20,000 cost, and they did cut out a number of items too, but they were relatively small items. So, you can see that final, cost estimate there at the bottom. The plan is to move forward with it, but I just want to make sure council was aware that there was an increase in cost there. And at this point in time, we feel like we still should move forward. We're not expecting to see this item for possibly another 18 months. But at this point, we need to order it to get it going. So just more informational, and if you'd like to approve the estimate, you can, but it was approved at council earlier this year, just more of an update.
Okay, thanks for the update. Any questions from anybody?
Will this lock the price in?
It should, yes.
Okay.
And they're getting what they need, I mean, they're not cutting on anything that...
No, the only things they changed were a couple of the things in, like the interior of the cab and things like that.
okay.
Like going to roll-up windows instead of power windows, things like that, nothing that
I just wanted to make sure they got the stuff they needed
nothing
to
that
do
should
the
affect
job.
the actual operations of the vehicle,
Okay.
so.
Okay, thank you. Administrator's report, number 1, 2023 Cities, Townships presentation for the Dodge Center ambulance.
Well, I've got a couple things, and I'm just gonna keep this brief, because I know we want to have a brief meeting tonight. Just gonna go through a couple things in a report there verbally, before we get into the Dodge Center stuff.
Okay.
We finished pole testing, all the electric poles in town, and out of 254 poles that were tested, only 3 were red flagged, which is that they need to be replaced ASAP, so we're really pleased about that. There were 37 that were yellow tagged, which means we need to look at them again in 5 years. Those poles, especially at the base, tend to deteriorate over time. It's just the nature of soils and different things. So, we're gonna continue to do that. It actually worked out that we were able to do it pretty cost effectively too. It only cost about $6,000, so we're happy about that. Working with DGR also on a new feeder line. So, I think council will recall, maybe back in, early August, late July, when the fire hall came in, there were a couple of blinks 3 days in a row. And part of that had to do with, we have 2 feeder lines, one that kind of serves the west half of town, one that serves the east half of town. At the fire hall, they were joined, so it provided for balancing the load. Well, when the fire hall came down, it meant that half of town was running on one line, half was on the other, and they weren't linked anymore. Now, we've since then put a tie back in, but because of that, we found that, the east feeder actually was carrying more load than we would typically want to do. And so what's happening was, at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, when all the air conditioning kicks in, that load was hitting the breaker, the reclosure, and that's why it was blinking. Now, it was settling back down again once everything kicked on, so it wasn't a safety issue, but it just was a matter of, it was gonna continue to hit that blinking. So, we talked to them, and they looked at our load balancing, and they're recommending that we add a 3rd feeder, especially because we are looking at taking on additional load on the south side of town with the South Fork addition, as well as some additional commercial potential down there, and the new apartment complexes on the west part of town. As you know, we had the Vale one, and then we're looking at another one this year. So, probably gonna be around $250,000. We won't be looking at bonding for it, but it's, basically what it'll be is it'll be an additional transmission line that'll run along 8th Avenue up to the Excel line that kind of goes along 16th Street, and it'll hook in there, and then what they'll add in a reclosure that basically cuts the west half of, it will redirect the power onto that new line as opposed to having it go through the rest of them. So, suffice to say, don't want to make it complicated, but we're looking at moving forward with that as soon as possible, probably this spring, just because we think it's going to provide a much more balanced load for us. In the short term, it'll eliminate the need for a substation, which is a much more expensive proposition, so.
It's all out of electric fund.
It'll be all out of electric, and it's something that may not be in the budget this year, but it would be something we would use our reserves for, so. I went through with the Chamber of Commerce Board and reconciled their financials and evaluated their budget for next year, so they have a similar schedule for their events next year, so we're satisfied with where they're at. We had 11 applications for the admin assistant position. We'll be interviewing probably in the next 2 weeks. The question was if there's any interest from council members to be on the interview panel. Obviously, I know your schedules are, it's not necessarily, if you're working, it's difficult, but...
I'm not me.
Okay, not available, sure. Well, let me know. You don't have to make a decision tonight. We're probably looking at the 4th, maybe, something like that, early December, to be doing the interview. The plan is to start that person in January, so it'll be like a January 1 start. So, if you're interested, that's fine. If not, that's all right. We
You're
probably
gonna do them all,
internally before.
you're gonna do them all in one day?
Yeah, I think so. We're gonna try to we'll probably do 4 of them, so we'll probably do just hour, and just get them done within an afternoon. But, like I said, I know you gotta look at your calendars. Let me know if you are. If you're not, that's okay. I included this information on utility bills. I know Councilmember Ferris reached out to me and said there were some questions from some folk from the public, and I will say, whenever we have anyone come into City Hall, I'm glad to explain it to them, and I encourage folks to reach out to me. I haven't necessarily had a lot of conversations with the people about it, but, our utility bill, the one thing to keep in mind is that we round down. So for water, for sewer, you can, and I detailed it in that packet, use 990 gallons, it shows up as a 0 for usage. The next month you use a little over 1,000, it's gonna hit that 2,000 mark, you're gonna get billed for 2,000 then. And that's simply how it does. In the past, the council has said, keep billing at the 1,000 mark, that's a standard practice for a lot of utilities. We don't have to do it that way, we could bill at the gallon if that's what people wanna do, it would just be a decimal point change. But, folks, if you hear from folks who have questions, let them know. I'm glad to talk to anybody about their bill, but it's basically, we take the rate that's set for the 1,000 gallons, we multiply it times the number of those gallons that's used, we add in the base fees, and that's what generally sets up the fee. I know we hear feedback on the sewer rate. We have a brand-new plant, or not a brand-new plant, but it's a newer plant, and when you build a newer plant, they're pretty expensive, and a lot of that goes into debt service. So, it's one of the reasons, you might find a town that just has ponds still. Some of these smaller towns still have ponds. Well, obviously, that's a lot more cost-effective than having a plant, but it isn't the kind of plant we have. So, we try to let folks know what they need to know there. City clerk is going to be on leave for a couple of weeks, so if you have any questions, just email me directly, that'll be fine. I don't want to bother her. Park and Rec, I met, and they are recommending freezing the aquatic center fees for 2024, so that is the recommendation from them. I think we had a good year there, as you know, we had the financials at our last meeting, so moving forward with that, I think that's something we can support. And then I know, Councilmember Johnson, you had some questions about their capital for next year. So the items they're looking at next year is waterside steps. They're going to be redoing the kiddie slide feature, they'll be redoing the dive tower, and then repainting the bucket water features. And then in 2025, they're looking at redoing the large slides, which would be a large resealing of those slides. So it's a pretty capital-intensive project, but it would hopefully extend the life of those slides by another 10 years. So, just so you had questioned that last night. So, okay, with those things, I'll take any questions, anything that anybody has on that. Otherwise, we can dip into this, and like I said, I know we want to be brief tonight, but I do need to get some feedback at some point in time here from council on this Dodge Center issue that's, been talked about a bunch. The two proposals, two types of plans they're looking at right now, one is a joint powers group, the other is a special taxing district. Those are the two that they're looking at. And the truth is, if Cass and council decides that they're not interested in doing anything, that certainly is an option too. But I will need some feedback from you. The way those would work is a joint powers board would be organized where each of the members would have a vote, and then they would set a budget for the ambulance group each year. But it's also something that is got a little bit more flexibility, because you can opt in and you can opt out of that. Once you set up a special taxing district, it's kind of done. The nice thing about a special taxing district is it would be on your property tax bill, it wouldn't be a levy increase from the city of Casson. It would be kind of like the school district or a hospital district or something like that. It would be a separate line item. The feedback we would get for rate, because it wouldn't revolve an increase. So if we did a joint powers board, we would be raising our levy here, and that money would be contributed to the ambulance. If you do a special taxing district, you would have, a separate line. So, some of the feedback from some of the members who had talked about of the group had said they didn't really want to have it on their property tax statement. They didn't want to take responsibility for it. They'd rather have it in the special taxing district. Other people said, no, we'll raise the levy and we want to be in the joint powers, because then we can opt out if a different council comes in and they decide they don't want to do it anymore. I mean, I don't know, that gets into kind of a messy thing if you got people that are deciding to opt in, opt out. How do you break down the voting strength too? Obviously, a township shouldn't necessarily have the same voting as City of Casson if we're providing 50% of the funding and they're providing 5%. So there's a lot of kinks that have to get worked out. But they're definitely, and you see the financial projections in there, they're definitely concerned that long-term the prognosis there isn't very good if they don't have some kind of change.
The taxing district, we still get representation.
Yeah, you would still have a board for the taxing district. Like I said, I think the best way to, when I think of district, would be similar to a school district. So you have a school board for the school district, you'd have a taxing district board, and how that would be, most likely they'd be designated by the entities that are involved. So whether it's the townships or it's the city, you'd have a mayoral appointment or something like that along those lines, I would anticipate.
And if somebody opts out, that just means, so say the city of Casson opts out, they just respond to ambulance service to Casson anymore?
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
And because of the way the districts are set up, we couldn't contract with somebody else to do that.
Yeah, I mean,
Have
it would be very problematic, because, I mean,
They've got this
the
area
state would have to
that-
change the district, you know,
Yep.
if we chose to try and get into it like Mayo service territory or something like that.
Okay. And when are they planning on asking for,
Well,
they
they
looking
would,
for
so,
feedback as soon as
yeah, I mean,
possible?
they need the special taxing district to be set up by next summer in order to get it on the tax statements for 2025. So basically, in the next 6 months, we either have to say, you know, we're not interested in doing anything, which the council can choose to do that. They can choose to say, you know, we favor the joint powers group or the special taxing district, or right now, we contribute $5,000, you know, as a gift, basically to support their training. That would be another option where we say, okay, well, we're not gonna come in as a joint powers group person, but we'll give you $50,000 a year to help support your operations instead. And, I mean, it's really up to the council and what you wanna do. You know, for example, they gave Hayfield as a good option, where they have an ambulance district there, Hayfield does its own. And what the council there decided was that they were gonna contribute a certain amount per capita per household in Hayfield, and they were gonna do it voluntarily instead of joining any kind of joint powers. Now, the nice thing about it is that, for the council's perspective, in a year where they don't wanna spend the $50,000, they don't have to. You know, there isn't any, you know, stick to it, really. It's just a matter if they're giving them the gift. The negative there is that you do have that predictability of revenue for the ambulance group that's not necessarily there either if a council changes. So, anyways, as I said, I don't wanna belabor this, but, I'm interested in your feedback, because when I go to these meetings, you know, they've talked about this quite a bit over the last year, and I think I understand the process and the problem pretty well, but, we're gonna be a big player with this, because we're half of the calls for the ambulance service.
When's their next meeting?
I believe they're scheduled in January again.
So we should add this as a,
And, I mean, if you'd like, I certainly can invite, they've been willing, AJ, would be willing to come and talk about the ambulance service from Dodge Center, if you'd like to have him come and present again. I know, I think it was Angie was here before, so if you'd like to get an update from them, we can certainly invite them to come to a meeting in January.
and the big thing is have to be prepared that, from my perspective, my opinion, without talking to the other council members, is that district, gift, what's the other one? Joint powers?
Yeah.
Either way, if we're supplying half the funding, we're gonna have half the say.
Right. Well, that's something-
Otherwise, we're just wasting money.
Yeah, no, I'm
We
trying to be
found
very
over Dutch
clear with
Center
them, that
and
the
they're-
way I see it working is that, you know, the joint powers of the special taxing district has to have control over the operations. It can't be,
Right.
City of Dodge Center controls all the operations, which is how it works right now, and then the joint powers group just gives them money.
Right.
I mean, it has to be like, we have to own, I mean, they have to have their own insurance, they have to have their own, you know, ownership of that, because if that was to dissolve, you would have to, those assets would have to go back to the entities they're involved in a per capita or a percentage on basis. Because I don't see that working where, you know, you're just giving the City of Dodge Center that money. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to do it that way. We would want ownership of that if we're the ones spending the money on it.
Exactly.
Especially on the capital side. I mean, I guess in a way, it's a little bit like the way the ice arena works here. So the ice arena right now, the county owns the building and we operate it, so we split those costs with them. You know, the nice thing for us is that, you know, if it were to end that relationship, the building's theirs, it's not our problem. You know, with this situation, you know, the operations themselves, like the hiring and that can be managed, you know, by Dodge Center, however, but I think the capital, the buildings, the equipment, that sort of stuff has value to us, and that's what would need to be, we'd have to come up with some kind of split. So, and that's kind of how Zumbrota does theirs. So Zumbrota, Wanamingo, Goodhue, those cities are involved in joint powers. So, if you'd like, I certainly can invite him to come, and he could probably speak more eloquently about it than I can. I know that the ambulance topic is a big one in southeastern Minnesota. Lewiston is covering for Altura and St. Charles and Winona right now. So the folks in Lewiston are working the whole of Winona County pretty much, and it's, for them, it's a little overwhelming. A lot of the agencies are having a lot of issues with staffing, and the volunteer aspect of it is just, it's kind of going away quick. So, any questions on that?
Yeah, I think, a few meetings ago, or maybe even longer, was it said that, Mike Bubani was consulting financially for them?
That's right. And you see in there that Excel spreadsheet, and that's one that Mike came up with for them. That's right.
Okay, so if we do ask somebody from them to come and discuss with us, I guess I would also ask if Mike would join them,
Sure.
you know, from,
Well, I mean, I'll be glad to reach out to the folks from Dodge Center and ask if they'd be willing to come and see if Mike has availability as well. No, that's no problem at all. Because I'll be honest with you, you know, he understands, and this breakdown here, that's definitely something he did, was this per household, and he kind of can explain why it costs what it does and how it costs what it does. Is that something you're interested in having?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, I'll reach out to them and see if we can't get something scheduled for January, okay?
Yep.
Perfect, thank you.
Then the other items I have in there, just notice of proposed property tax, the hearing's coming up. Those, I would imagine the county will have those statements out to folks probably in the next week. That's typical for them, is usually right after Thanksgiving, they get those in the mail. And then there's your cash and investment summary there as well.
Okay. On the utility bill, you already went through that.
Yep.
Okay, any questions for Tim? Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Appreciate it. Engineers report.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. Just one item tonight. This is a continuation of last meeting, when the council said they were interested in looking at securing some more money for our 16th Street Northwest extension to get that extended all the way over to Dodge County 21 to Dump Road. So in your council packet is a resolution authorizing submittal to the program that's called Local Road Improvement Program. Should be familiar, that's the funding we got for 16th Street going east when we paved that Old Township Road out to Dodge 15. So we got $1 million through that application, so we're looking at about $1.5 million through this project, because the max has gone up. So, in your council packet is a resolution, and then there's another attachments for, another attachment within, the council packet, which is the attachments for the actual application. That's what we're physically gonna submit, assuming the council passes the resolution tonight. You can see in the first page of that submittals, bunch of verbiage there on why we think it's a route of regional significance, why it's important, why they should be picking that for funding. Project schedule, we did put in here that a potentially a late fall 2024 start time with completion in 25 is on the table. I think that'll help our application, whether or not we do it in 25, late 24 or into 25, or actually in 25 we can work out at a later date. We got a lot of the heavy lifting done when we did the last project and got the grade set and whatnot, so it's not a ton of work on our side of things. We have an opinion of construction costs, and then you can see it's about $1.9 million. We're gonna ask, as proposed tonight, ask for $1.5 million, so it's about $420,000 that would not be covered. We're gonna have that in our borrow ahead, if you will, of the MSAS funds. We're not gonna borrow ahead as much as we thought we were with the roundabout project, so a couple of years from now, if we're building in construction, we'll likely have close to that $420,000 available, or at least a really good chunk of it, if not at all. Then we have a map there with a bunch of pretty colors, showing why we think it's a, good project for them to fund. You can see in yellow there, is the continuation of the road. We show the Dodge County icon there. There's some development from the county with their nature center that's planned there, their Habitat for Humanity, improvements there. We show the Quick Trip logo there that was constructed, along with our, high school there, and then we show the roundabout that was constructed this construction season. And then just continuation of the different documents in there, just shows why it's important. It's part of the 14 corridor study from MnDOT. It's part of our regional transportation plan to get that north kind of collector in our city constructed, so it's important from that perspective. And then we do have some letters of support. We got a couple more of them out there too, so the chief may have one coming here shortly, so. That's it. I'll pause there, see if there's any questions at the end of the day. If we do move forward, understand it is still competitive. So we may not, this isn't a guarantee we're gonna get funded, but there is some more money in there this year than previous years, so, I think it's a great program. Like I said, we've used it in the past. Byron just did it for their 20th Avenue that goes from the high school to the east there, so, we're getting projects funded, so there's gonna be money that's gonna come to this district, so we hope to try to get some of that. So, I'll pause there. Any questions, and then, like I said, consideration of the resolution.
Okay. Any questions for Brandon on the application?
On the future street, going north, could you ballpark estimate, rough estimate of cost for that 3 blocks there, 4 blocks going north? Just thinking ahead, we just talked about annexing 18th, and if we add that north section in, it gives access to the Schutte property, it gives access to the nature center area, and it gives access to both households.
$250,000, just.
And then do we, like we have with other projects, a house is a house is a house, we charge them the same type of thing for that road?
If you're asking about special assessing that, I think that's a little bit different conversation. Having
Yeah.
a new street, who's it serving, how's
Yeah.
the access working, that's a lot bigger, deeper
Different,
conversation.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the council directs on what projects we do. I think when I've relayed to Mr. Schutte, I think staff has, is if that road's ever built, I think there's a development opportunity there, is when that gets built. Again,
Okay.
that's my personal opinion. We'll build the road tomorrow
Yeah.
if we want us to.
If it's,
Um,
I get what you're saying.
I think that's when
cool.
ultimately something is built up there, is my opinion.
and what is coming to the table that's forcing that road, because we don't really need it right now, right?
Yeah.
Quick Trip got their access in there, they're higher, they didn't really need it.
Yep.
Those single families up there don't necessarily need it, they have access to 57. What needs it is probably that development up there when that comes, or if the county's planning the nature center there, if that's kind of moving forward, then maybe we need the first phase of that road. If Mr. Schutte says he's gonna build a great development, it's gonna bring in tons of tax dollars, well, then I think we got a conversation to be had. And again, that's my personal opinion and what I think staff has conveyed to him, so. The assessment's gonna be a little bit tougher conversation, because we have to show benefit, right? So, are those properties benefiting from that road? That's gonna be the question at hand, so.
Easier to plow.
And the other thing is, it will be easier to plow, absolutely. The other part of that is, we can't really get funding for that, because this route is a route of regional significance, 16th Street, it's a nice corridor, it's on the Highway 14 corridor point, all that jazz, why it's important, connecting our northwest part of town, so we're not gonna get some outside
I didn't think we
money.
would get, no. I just didn't know if it was more beneficial to do all at once versus separately.
Larger construction projects, there's so many fish in there, but again, I just don't see the council building that until something's being proposed there. But again,
Could that be added as
staff's opinion.
could that be added as an option? Let's bid, to see what it would cost.
Yeah, we'd probably, that level of magnitude, we'd probably want to design it out and include it in as an alternate, and then choose at the time of bidding.
Right.
That can maybe come back, I mean, it doesn't, if we get the application in, we're not hearing on the 16th Street till spring, probably not starting engineering documents till next summer for maybe a fall bid or next spring bid, a year from this spring. We could have that conversation, or I could have maybe a better number too to talk about that road.
Yeah. No, I completely understand not wanting to build something that we're not gonna have any businesses or anything there. I just, if it's cost effective to do it right away within the project.
It's cost effective from an efficiency standpoint, having a contractor there and only engineering it once and going out for bid once, but I think the other part of that is, when is the other development gonna really need it? That's the $250,000 question, right?
For sure. Any other questions for Brandon?
Maybe to go back to that, I mean, the other thing is, Schutte owns property itself that's ready to hook up and go,
We would do that first, if we...
I think that's gonna happen first. I think we're gonna see some development on the south end of that, near Dollar Tree, and then right off the roundabout. I think that's gonna be the next kind of phase of construction, because again, developer and/or the city have a $250,000 road to get that in the developable state, which kind of is what it is. It's, when do we get there? So.
Any other questions for Brandon on that? And then somebody wanted to give an update on,
Question on Main Street on the temporary bump outs we put out there. Public Works and I have taken the no news is good news, so we haven't really heard anything negative on them. Sounds like some other staff members and the mayor's heard some positive, getting some, items out there that show those stop signs, so they're obeyed more, so we don't have people running them for a safety issue. That was kind of my concern too, of having pedestrians thinking that there's a stop condition for cars and it's new, but I think having eventually planters indoor curb bump outs there is gonna really show those stop signs, and you're gonna get, a safer condition for the pedestrians there. So I think they're good. We did not bump out on the side streets, so trucks can use that, the larger trucks, to turn on the side streets, whether or not they're swinging kind of into those other lanes as they come into Main Street, or swing out into Main Street and swing in the other side lanes, as they're going either north or southbound on the side streets. So we kind of left that open with the idea that there wasn't a lot of traffic on those side streets, so the more that we could slow down Main Street was where the big advantage was, but still have it, navigable from a large truck perspective, so.
perfect. Thank you.
Unless there's other updates to hear from the community, I haven't seen too much other than that, so Public Works hasn't said anything either, so.
Perfect. I need to go back to the last item, because it's a resolution to authorize the LRIP application, so I got a little ahead of myself. Any other questions on the LRIP application?
Is there any reason not to put in the application? We're basically asking for free money, right?
Yeah, there's no strings attached to it.
So then, it's not 100% fundable, but again, the other part that we're short, we still have in our MSIS bank, which is money that we get every year that we've spent. This council and past council said 16th Street is our project, the roundabout at 16th Street and the extension is our project. Don't care what else is out there that we could fund with that money until have built 16th Street. We're not spending on anything else, so that's why I'm continuing on that direction to put it before you. Leveraging your money to get $1.5 million, that's what we've been doing, that's what we're proposing to continue to do. I don't know why you want to answer the question boldly.
And we did a lot of engineering work already, so the only drawback would be if we were spending a lot of money on engineering in the road, We already kind of did the design part of it, so I mean, it's kind of almost like a free application.
We built the trail through there, we already set the grade for the road, we have the storm sewer design, we started the pond because we needed dirt to fill it in, so it makes sense, but it still is a $1.9 million project, right? I think that's one of the complaints that I've heard is, when's 16 gonna go through, why didn't we?
All I hear.
Yeah, so it's there, it's a $1.9 million conversation, right? So,
Yep.
we're trying to solve the problem.
Okay, any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve the LRIP, application.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Dan, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Paul. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Brandon, appreciate your work on that. On to personnel, first one is Fire Department new hire recommendation for Brian Ellenson. Ellison. We have the recommendation in the packet from the chief. Any questions for the chief? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Make the motion to approve.
Thanks, Ryan, do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Mel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Tell Brian thanks for coming on. And then the second one is Fire Department Captain Shu, leave of absence. He's requested a leave of absence. The letter's in your packet. Wish him the best on his leave. Entertain a motion to approve that.
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Mel. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thanks, Joe. Personnel policy update, the memo from the league came down about addressing this in the policy possibly.
Yeah, so including your packet there, you do have a copy of a draft personnel policy. And there are a number of tweaks in there. Most of them are pretty minor. We have kept up with our personnel policy relatively well, but it is good once in a while to just go back to take this draft league one. And there's a couple areas that are highlighted in yellow there. That's where some of the more significant changes were. Currently, under section 12.22, we don't have a light-duty assignment in our policy. It's something that we don't have to have, but it's something that the league included in their draft, so we're looking for feedback on that in particular. And then there's the other one, which I think is holidays. Is that right, Linda?
Yes.
So, and I know I spoke with Dan about that a little bit. These are not necessarily coming from us, it's a matter of what the draft policy was from the league. So those two in particular, we are looking for some feedback on. And that one, I think, it talks about a lot of people have floating holidays. It takes into account some changes in worker base and, you know, the fact that there are some folks who may celebrate different holidays. So, don't need any decision on it tonight, just wanted to get it in your hands. You can read through it. If you have questions of it, please let me know, or Linda will be gone, let me know. Hopefully before the end of the year, I think we plan on looking at this on the 13th of December for maybe finalization.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And anything from our attorney? No, thank you. Any question on correspondence? Okay, we will go ahead and get ready for adjournment. The next meeting is December 6th.
Yep.
So just a reminder that that is a change, so December 6th is our next meeting. And with that, entertain a motion for adjournment.
Make the motion.
Thanks, Ryan. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Mel. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, everybody. Have a good Thanksgiving tomorrow.
That was a really good. It sure is. I liked all